like a Hellcat.
Before we get started, I have a favor. If you enjoy my content and want to see me continue to improve in both quality and size, please check out my Patreon linked in the description. Any amount helps and it is greatly appreciated. There are so many rewards for each level of donation, so go check it out. Now back to the video. Hey guys, this is EmeraldAvengerG, and something kind of crazy is going on. Jeff Kaplan has just left a very lengthy reply in the Overwatch forums, replying to someone talking about a 1-3-2 comp, 1 tank, 3 DPSs, and 2 supports. And that's kind of, for me, that's a little bit concerning, but let's hop, basically this entire video up until I finish reading it, except for the end, is going to be me reading it, so let's go ahead and get into this. So this is Jeff Kaplan. Wow, it's super weird to stumble upon this thread. In early December, we were brainstorming ways to shorten DPS queue times, and the idea was proposed to try changing the role queue team composition to be 1 tank, 3 DPS, and 2 support. Our matchmaking engineers did some modeling around queue times, expected behaviors, etc., and all indications pointed to an overall positive improvement to all queue times under a scenario like that. From a design perspective, we were reluctant for a number of reasons. Before implementing 2-2-2 role queue, we had done experimenting with the team composition being 1 tank, 1 support, and 4 damage. The play tests under the 4-1-1 comp were terrible. The problem was the solo support. As a solo support, you felt unable to keep the rest of your team alive. Added to that, at all times you had 5 very aggressive players prioritizing you as target every single time. As soon as the support player on one side died, the entire team would fall like a house of cards. So when the idea of trying a 3-2-1 came up, we were hesitant because our poor playtest was 4-1-1. But we did something interesting in December, and I'm really proud of the team for sticking with it. Internally, for the past 2 months, we changed the game to be based around a 3-2-1 composition. When we queued for our playtests, we only got 1 tank per team for each match. We decided to live with it for December and January because we felt like the easy and natural thing for us to do is just say, hey, this is different, and here are all the problems with it, and dismiss the system. But by forcing the team to try it out and live with it for so long, it challenged us to try to solve some of the problems that had surfaced. And there are a number of challenges. First, there's an issue with what players have come to call off-tanks. The biggest issues center around D.Va, Zarya, and Roadhog. The current playstyles of those tanks, if you're adhering to the various metas that have existed, is to pair them with another main tank. Obviously, if we're changing the distribution of the role from 2-2-2 to 3-2-1, it would require some balancing changes. Possibly more than that. Roadhog is a great example. Is the correct thing to do for Roadhog under that design to try to make him more main tanky, or is the correct thing to do simply move him to the damage role and balance him as a damage character? We've tried both in our months of playtesting. If you were to come and play Roadhog today with us in the 3-2-1 experiment, he's moved from tank to damage category. He only has 400 health, Take a Breather only heals and does not do damage reduction, and there's a bunch of DPS changes to his scrap gun. Now don't freak out, we're not doing this for 2-2-2. I'm only sharing design experiments that have been going on. Maybe a better direction for Roadhog under 3-2-1 is some sort of team damage reduction ability. How do you take what is essentially an off tank and make him a main tank? This is what we would have to explore with any of these tank characters. Since the tank roster is already one of the more limited character selections, we're obviously not crazy about removing the choice from the tank players. And if our stated goal is to improve queue times, then going to 1 tank actually remove a bunch of otherwise tank players from queue. Or were some of these tank players actually damage players who wanted a faster queue time, so they picked Roadhog? Obviously, complicated questions, and it is even more complicated to have a confident answer. The other fear around the 3-2-1 comp is the importance it places around the tank player. In our playtesting, this has manifested itself in 2 notable ways. 1, some players feel a lot of pressure to choose the correct tank. If there's only 1 tank, the team has a very strong opinion about who that tank should be. Another fear around this issue is that metas will be even more limited as players tend to take the path with least resistance towards their hero choice. If Reinhardt is deemed meta, do we only see Rein from now on? Are we all mad at our tank player if they play Hamster? 2, some tank players felt a tremendous anxiety about the performance in the match. They felt like being the lone tank put a lot of pressure on them, and if they died, it was a really big deal. Some of our tank/support players who would occasionally play tank stopped playing tank during 3-2-1, and gravitated towards support because they felt intimidated to be the main tank, and have so much focus on their play. Conversely, there were a number of main tank players on the team who actually enjoyed the added spotlight. Typically in a video game, there are different personas that are attached to roles in games: tank, support, damage, etc. We saw this in WoW, and we see it in Overwatch. While these stereotypes, and you have to be really careful assuming too much here, there are many tank players who love being the lone tank and carrying the team to glory. Watching this play out in our weird internal experiments has been fascinating. Our support players have given mixed feedback on the experiment as well. On the negative side, people feel bad when the lone tank dies. Positive side, many support mains have commented that they feel like they have much more freedom to focus on other players and not just try to keep the big bags of hit points alive all match. In general, these matches were much more chaotic, and, I'll touch on this later, feel more FPS-y. The result is good or bad, depending on the type of player you are. For some of our support players, this makes matches more exciting. Everyone is taking a lot more damage under the 3-2-1. For some support players, the chaos causes negative anxiety, and they prefer just healing tanks. The damage experience has been overall positive. For one, those of us like me, who usually queue for all 3 roles, are often pleasantly surprised when we actually get to play damage. Also, many on the team have cited that with 3 damage dealers, they feel less pressured than they do in the current live game with only 2 damage. The compositions have been very interesting. For example, you can have a 2 sniper comp, maybe Widow and Hanzo, and have a flanker, like Genji Tracer. It's really opened up the game. If you're evaluating the pluses and minuses, it adds to the chaos, makes the gameplay more like a traditional FPS, less barriers, less damage mitigation going on, but also detracts a bit from team play. Speaking of team play, one of our testers who did not like the experiment made a comment that he felt like 3-2-1 detracted from team play too much. I found this fascinating because in 2013-2014, every decision we made was to embrace, encourage, and force team play at all costs. We put so much effort into putting focus on team victory/defeat rather than individual performance. But in 2020, I feel like the overemphasis on team play, while great for hype competitive players in situations such as Overwatch League, causes a lot of psychological pressure for your average players just looking to blow off some steam in a video game. I guess what I'm saying is that in 2020, feeling like you can deviate from team play a little bit in Overwatch and have some success feels like a good thing, not a bad thing to me. The other analogy I've used, and I know you all hate my sports analogies, is Overwatch, in its current evolved form, feels more like a football game, American, to me, where every match is 4th down on the goal line. The amount of team synergy and execution required to pull off a victory is exciting, but also a little intense. There's something nice about a more loose, skirmishy version of the game, but again, it's all opinion and perspective. Not everyone on my team agrees with me that that's a good thing. The other odd thing about testing this is that when we started, everyone treated it like it was one of Jeff's crazy experiments, and was super different, challenging, and possibly stupid idea. I tried to calm people down by reminding them that most of the matches in Overwatch's history since launch, up until the recent role queue, were actually played with 1 tank or less. After a few of the early playtests in December, I remember one developer giving me feedback that the game felt like old school Overwatch, like when it first launched. I tried to point out that the reason they felt this way is because we used to play the game like this all the time. It shouldn't be that surprising or different. Let's remember, the surprising thing back then was actually having 2 tanks. So it has been a really fun and interesting experiment. We're not really confident that this is the correct thing for the game. It solves a lot of problems, but it also introduces a lot of problems, like most things in the world of game design. I'm really proud of the Overwatch team for experimenting with it for the past 2 months. We were really conflicted on it, so it was cool to see you bring up the idea. We'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. We've also been brainstorming if there's a way to bring these experiments to the community somehow, either through the PTR or the live game somehow. We don't want to freak people out though. Usually when stuff hits the PTR, we're intended for it to go live, or some version of it. With this is much more of an early experiment more than anything else. Anyways, thanks for proposing ideas like this. So just going off of what he said there, they're not sure if they're going to take this route, but the different problems they showed up, the players feeling too pressured whenever they're the single tank, or too pressured whenever they're... It can create a bunch of situations that aren't good, but also can create a bunch of good situations. I don't like the comparison that it feels like the old Overwatch before role queue, because before the old role queue, you typically wouldn't have tanks or supports in general. You would have maybe a support or maybe a tank. There's no balance to it. And you're also just ranked on, or MMR. Your MMR was everything just averaged out, so it wasn't really... Old Overwatch wasn't a good example of what good Overwatch balance should be. I think they understand that, but I think that's just the example they were trying to use. Also, if we're going by this, whatever they decide to do in the future, Roadhog is going to be changed somehow. Whether he's turned into a DPS, which is not likely, or turned into a tank with a bodyguard passive, like Blame the Controller and I have both suggested. Blizzard, just do it, it'd be so easy. We might see a whole new Roadhog before too long. Maybe with the launch of Overwatch 2, we'll see a whole new Roadhog. All that aside, there's nothing much else I can add to what Jeff Kaplan already said. He basically said everything that I would have said, all the possible downfalls, all the possible positive things that could come from it. He's already said everything I am thinking, so I think I can just go ahead and off the video here. So what do you guys think? Do you think a 3-2-1 comp would work? A 3-2-1 role queue would work in Overwatch? Do you think it'd be horrible for Overwatch? What do you think about the potential for Roadhog being switched to DPS? Sound off in the comment section down below, in their Discord server, linked in the description. As always, thank you all for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Go follow me on all my socials. Keep up to date with me on the channel. Go to my Discord, join the conversation, and go to my Patreon if you feel like supporting me. This is Matthew, EmeraldAvenger. Have a nice day. Stay safe. Peace out.